I never imagined a single insult could threaten to erase my entire bloodline, till his mocking words echoed through the courtroom like a death knell. I felt the judge's gavel tremble above me. My heart skipped. My hands shook. I watched him lean forward, lips curling with contempt, as he spat the words, "Your family isn't who you claim." Then he laughed, a sound colder than steel. I froze. I couldn't breathe. The courtroom lights felt too bright. Papers rustled. The bailiff's boot scraped against polished marble. And I had one question burning in my chest. How could he know my name, use it to destroy me? I clutched the edge of the witness stand. My knuckles went white. My throat burned with unshed tears. Then a hush fell. Every eye locked on me. My world narrowed to a single moment. Either I crumble under that cruel whisper, or I fight back. Then my cousin rose. What did the DNA test reveal? And could it save me? Stay with me. I am Ava Moreno, a pediatric nurse by trade and a single mother by circumstance. I wake before dawn, the soft hum of the city creeping through my bedroom window. My spine aches from yesterday's shift. I press my hand to my ribcage, feeling the pulse of fatigue. Then I push myself upright and swing my legs over the edge of the bed. I pad across the hardwood floor to the kitchen, where the kettle hisses to life. I pour coffee into my favorite chipped mug, dark roast, no sugar, and cradle that warmth between my palms. Then I glance at the framed photograph on the counter. My son, Caleb, grinning in a tiny astronaut suit. He's everything. Each morning, I fight the urge to linger. I dress in scrubs, soft blue, flecked with color from cartoon characters I've stitched in for the kids, and tie my dark hair into a neat bun. I kiss the top of Caleb's head, still curled beneath the blankets, and whisper, "Mom's got this." Then I slip out the door, locking the weight of responsibility behind me. My family, my true family, has always been my anchor. My mother, Elena, taught me how to bandage scraped knees and broken hearts. My cousin, Javier, was my partner in every childhood caper, from midnight bike rides to secret lemonade stands. Then there's my Aunt Rosa, whose cinnamon rolls could soothe any storm. I am their firstborn, the one who stayed close while others drifted. I spend my days at St. Mercy Children's Hospital, steering tiny patients through fevers and fears. I memorize every cry, every hopeful smile. I live for that moment when a frightened child finally lets go and laughs. Then I hurry home to Caleb, where bedtime stories and tucking in rituals fill the cracks in my soul. For years, life felt balanced. My job was chaotic. My home was calm. I juggled night shifts with morning soccer practices. I learned to manage exhaustion like an art form, coffee in one hand, a comforting voice in the other. I never questioned it. But then came the letter. It arrived on a rainy Tuesday, the envelope heavy, and the return address bore my last name. I tore it open with fingers trembling, expecting a hospital notice or a bill. Instead, I found an invitation to a mandatory paternity hearing. Mandatory. I stared at the words until the ink blurred. I remembered the one night 15 years ago, wild, youthful, reckless, and then I shook my head. That was before Caleb, before I decided to leave it all behind. I folded the paper and tucked it into my scrub pocket, trying to push the dread down. Then I laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty hallway. That evening, I told my mother. She pressed her hand against my cheek, eyes wide with worry. "Ava," she said, voice quivering like a child's, "what if they're testing your blood?" Blood. The word slapped me. My family name meant something. Moreno meant resilience, heritage, truth. But could a piece of paper erase all that? I called Javier next. He promised to look into it, his tone grave, protective. "Whatever they want, I'll handle," he said. Then his voice cracked, and I felt a surge of guilt. My cousin, too, was dragged into my mess. That night, I lay awake listening to the rain drum against the roof. What are they looking for? Thoughts spiraled past. Mistakes, unheard rumors, shadowy whispers from a life I didn't want to revisit. I closed my eyes and willed sleep to come, but each breath carried panic. The day of the hearing, I arrived at the courthouse in the same scrubs I wore to the hospital. The leather straps of my bag dug into my shoulder as I climbed the marble steps. My knees felt weak, like I might crumble at any moment. Then, the doors swung open. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood and old paperwork. I scanned the room, a dozen strangers in suits, their eyes flicking over me like I was a curious exhibit. I gripped the strap of my bag until my knuckles whitened. I had never felt so exposed. I spotted the man who'd insulted our name across the table, smirking as he flipped through documents. He wore power like armor. I recognized him as Victor Halstead, the attorney representing someone who claimed to be my long-lost brother. Brother. The word echoed through me. Then before I could gather my scattered thoughts, the bailiff called my name, and I realized this was no minor dispute. This was a war for my identity. What truths lurk in those DNA swabs? And how far will Victor go to destroy me? I arrived the next morning before the courtroom doors even opened. I pressed my palm against the cool brass handle, reminding myself to breathe. You belong here. Then I stepped inside. I watched Victor Halstead rise first. His suit was in pinstripes that whispered power. I felt a flicker of envy. So polished, he glanced at me, as if I were a loose thread, ready to be pulled. And then he began. Ms. Moreno, he said, voice smooth as glass. Let's review the facts. I stood at the witness stand again, my scrubs still pressed from the previous day. I cleared my throat. I'm ready. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You claim you never met this alleged brother. Yet here is a photograph taken when you were 14 of you and a boy named Carlos at Aunt Rose's wedding. He held up a glossy print. I recognized the ivory gown, the lace patterns. I'd worn that dress. I froze, my heart hammered. They found that. I forced a steady breath. That boy wasn't family. Victor cut me off. Ms. Moreno, you have the right to remain silent, but any denial will be used against you. I blinked. The words stung. Then I saw Javier's hand in the back row, tapping the bench. His eyes were frantic. Don't let him bully you. I swallowed. We were just kids. And yet, he continued, voice lowering, you left him behind. You moved away, changed schools. Convenient, convenient. The word echoed. I felt my cheeks flush. Convenient. I looked down at my trembling hands. Victor leaned in. Ms. Moreno, everyone has secrets. Yours could alter the future. He paused for effect, letting the threat hang in the air. Papers rustled. The judge cleared his throat. I fought the urge to step back. This is a game. I squared my shoulders. I have nothing to hide. But his next question tightened the noose. Then why refuse to provide recent DNA for comparison? My breath caught. I'd asked Javier to delay sending my sample just until after we gathered more evidence. I hadn't been ready. Not yet. Because I began, but my voice cracked. Victor pressed further. Because you fear the results. I wanted to shout that I feared nothing. Instead, I whispered, I fear mistakes I can't undo. The gallery stirred. I saw Aunt Rosa's worried expression. She clutched her tissues, as if bracing for a storm. My mother sat beside her, silent but vigilant. Caleb's teacher, Mrs. Lopez, had come to her presence, a reminder of all the children I comfort. I'm letting them down. Victor switched tactics. He played a tape. I recognized my own voice, recorded at a family reunion 5 years ago. I was laughing, talking about lineage, heritage. Moreno blood runs deep, I'd said. The words mocked me now. I pressed my fingers to my lips. Why did I say that? My guard, lowered by nostalgia, was weaponized against me, and then the gaslighting began. Ms. Moreno, he said softly, we all make slip-ups. Sometimes we say things we don't mean. Perhaps you regret acknowledging your roots so publicly. He tilted his head, feigning sympathy. I felt the blood drain from my face. Did I regret it? I'd believed in my heritage. I'd taught Caleb our family stories. And yet here was a man twisting my words, eroding my confidence. I shook my head, even as doubt slithered in. No, I stand by my words. Victor's lips curved. Very well. But how can we trust your testimony if you can't trust your own memories? I opened my mouth, but the objection died on my tongue. The courtroom noise swelled the scratch of pens, the murmur of whispers. My heart pounded so loud I was sure the judge could hear it. I glanced at Javier again. He caught my... I nodded once. Not yet. When Victor paused, I stepped forward. I'm not confused. And yet, he said, you refuse to submit. He tapped a folder. I have medical records here indicating your blood type doesn't match this supposed brother. I recoiled. Blood type? I hadn't seen those records. No one told me. I looked to my lawyer Ann ally I'd barely noticed until now. She was gathering her papers, pale but determined. Victor leaned back. We can settle this quickly. Ms. Moreno, if you cooperate. I felt cornered. They're waiting for me to break. My fingers grazed the podium. Be strong. I will cooperate, I said, voice low but steady, but on my terms. A hush fell. The judge lifted his gavel. My chest tightened. Did I just hand him the victory? Then the judge's clerk announced a recess. The room emptied around me, urgency crackling in the air. I stumbled off the stand, my legs like jelly. Javier intercepted me. He guided me to a hallway lit by harsh fluorescent lights. They've found more than photographs, he whispered, voice hoarse. They've dug into Aunt Rosa's records claiming she adopted you. I stared at him. Adopted. The word felt like a blade. No, I said, but my voice trembled. He shook his head. That's what they're pushing. My breath hitched. They'll rewrite my past. Then the hallway door slammed. I spun and froze. Who just entered? And what did they bring with them? Asterisk. I woke in the hallway. Fluorescent light stabbing my eyes. My heart pounded. I pressed my back against the wall, remembering Javier's words. They say I was adopted. Then I saw her Aunt Rosa, clutching a battered leather folder. Her face was pale, eyes rimmed with tears. I reached for her hand. What is it? I felt her tremble. They served me papers, an old adoption decree. They claim it's proof you're not Moreno by blood. I swallowed. My vision blurred. Adoption decree. My mind raced back to childhood, all the bedtime stories I'd heard in her kitchen, her cinnamon rolls, her laughter. Was it all a lie? Then I felt a rush of betrayal. Why would she? I swallowed bile, my own aunt. I clutched the folder, skimming pages stamped with dates and seals. It looked official. The ink had faded, but the signature was clear. Rosa M. Delgado. I sank to the floor. No. My legs gave out. I watched my world fractured. Then I heard a soft voice. Mama. I looked up. Caleb stood at the doorway, eyes wide. His backpack hung lopsided, one strap torn. He came to support me. I forced a smile. Hey, buddy. He stepped forward, hesitating. Are you okay? I felt my throat close. He shouldn't see me like this. I blinked back tears. I'm fine, really. He touched my arm. Mom, they said I might have a different grandma. His voice wavered. Confusion and hurt tangled in his tone. I froze. My child. His innocent question cut deeper than any legal claim. I crouched to meet his gaze. Caleb, I whispered. They're asking questions, but nothing changes what matters. He frowned. So, you're still my mom? I swallowed. I need to be sure. I pulled him close. My chest tightened as I listened to his small heartbeat against mine. Then I realized he deserved the truth. Yes, I said, voice trembling. Always. He nodded, but doubt lingered in his eyes. He turned away, backpack digging into his shoulder. He wants answers I can't give. I stood, clutching Rosa's folder. My legs shook. I knew I had to act or lose everything. Fight or fall. I stumbled back into the courtroom when the recess ended. Papers rustled. I met Victor's smug glance. He opened the folder on his desk, sliding the decree toward the judge. My past weaponized. The judge peered over his glasses. Ms. Moreno, is this authentic? I swallowed air. Yes, it's real. I closed my eyes, feeling tears burn. Yes. A tremor ran through me. Confession. I braced for the gavel. Victor smiled. Your Honor, this clearly shows Ms. Moreno was legally adopted by Rosa Delgado in 1990. Her bloodline differs. I heard my own voice in my head. Your family isn't who you claim. He's right. My lawyer rose. Her voice cracked. Your Honor, this decree is over 20 years old and contested. We have reason to believe it was forged. I blinked. Forged. My heart fluttered. Forged. She met my eye. Yes, Your Honor. My team has found an earlier birth certificate bearing the Moreno name filed within days of your birth. Hope flickered. Could it be? The judge tapped his gavel. Present the certificate. Victor's lips tightened. He leaned across the desk, glaring at me. He'll challenge it. Then my lawyer slid another file across. The judge unfolded a crisp document. My original birth certificate, name pronounced clearly. I saw my parents Ignatralina Moreno, Carlos Moreno. My breath caught. My real parents. Victor's face whitened. He shot to his feet. Objection. This certificate is unverified. The judge held up a hand. Counselor, will authenticate it. I felt the air shift, turn around. My limbs trembled, but relief washed through me. I could almost taste freedom, but then I heard the clerk clear her throat. Your Honor, There's an anonymous letter challenging the certificate's validity. A third party switched records. My pulse slammed again. My legs buckled. I clutched the witness stand as the judge studied the letter. Not again. My lawyer leaned close. Ava, we need that DNA today. I nodded, voice barely a whisper. I'll do it. I stepped forward. My heart pounded like a war drum. No more delays. I turned to the judge. Your Honor, I submit to DNA testing immediately. The courtroom fell silent. Every eye fixed on me. This is my last chance. Will the DNA finally prove the truth, or unearth an even darker secret? I followed my lawyer out of the courtroom into a small side room, its walls the color of tired beige. My pulse thundered in my ears. I sank into a hard-backed chair, my hands trembling. A lab technician stood nearby, holding a sealed swab kit. Then, I closed my eyes and nodded. I'm ready. She passed me the swab. I lifted it with unsteady fingers, pressed it against the inside of my cheek, and swirled. I tasted cotton and antiseptic. Every moment felt like an eternity. The technician snapped it shut, wrote my name on the label, and left. I sank back, blinking. What if it doesn't match? Doubt gnawed at me. I pictured Victor's smirk as he waited to pounce on every discrepancy. My lawyer placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. Javier has the results, she said quietly. I looked up. Javier, my cousin, the one who'd always had my back. He'd raced to an independent lab this morning, insisting on rush processing. I stood, pacing the thin carpet. I can't sit. Then the door opened. Javier stepped in, shoulders hunched, a manila envelope in his hand. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhaustion etched on his face. He extended the envelope without a word. I took it, my fingers brushing his. His sacrifice. I tore it open. Inside, a single sheet of paper, 2 columns of coded letter number combinations. At the top, a heading, comparison of Ms. Ava Moreno's DNA and Moreno family reference sample. Below, a match percentage, 99.987%. I felt my legs buckle. It's real. My breath hitched. I looked at Javier. They match. He nodded, voice thick. Your blood. I pressed the paper to my chest. My hands shook so violently the numbers blurred. Then I heard a voice from the doorway. My lawyer. Your Honor, may I? We re-entered the courtroom. My heart pounded against my ribs like a war drum. Every step echoed on the marble floor. All eyes on me. Victor rose, lips thinning. He spotted the paper in my hand and frowned. I clenched it, knuckles white. Then my lawyer addressed the judge. Your Honor, we submit these DNA results, authenticated by an accredited lab, confirming Ms. Moreno's lineage. The judge took the document, scanning it by the light. His brow furrowed, a lifetime of assumptions crumbling. He tapped the paper. Counsel, any objection? Victor swallowed. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He shook his head slowly. Stalling this time. The judge leaned back. Very well. These results confirmed the genetic relationship. He looked at me. Ms. Moreno, your identity is affirmed. I felt a rush of relief and disbelief. They said it would clear everything. But what about the anonymous letter, the forged decree? I glanced at my lawyer. She gave me a small, steady nod. Your Honor, she continued, we also move to strike the forged adoption decree from the record and dismiss all claims against Ms. Moreno. Victor stood, but his argument died on his lips as the judge hammered. His gavel, granted. A wave of emotion crashed through me. Gratitude for justice, sorrow for the pain endured, fury at the lies told. This is the moment I've been fighting toward. In the gallery, I saw my mother wipe her tears. Aunt Rosa bury her face in her hands. Mrs. Lopez clutched her purse as if it were a lifeline. And there standing near the exit, my son, Caleb, his eyes wide with wonder and relief. I stepped down from the stand. The bailiff nodded at me respectfully. Victor gathered his documents, shoulders slumped. I felt neither triumph nor hatred, only exhaustion. Like surf finally retreating after a storm, I reached Caleb first. He ran to me, wrapping his arms around my legs. I knelt, closing my eyes as I breathed in his small frame. I kept my promise. My mother and Aunt Rosa approached, flanking me like guardians. I took their hands, one on each side, and felt the solidity of family, unbreakable despite the lies. Javier came last, slipping an arm around my shoulders. I leaned into him, my partner. In this battle, the courtroom emptied slowly, the gavel's echo fading. I stood in the center of that hushed chamber, no longer a target, but a survivor. I pressed my palm to my chest, feeling the rapid beat of my heart, slow to a steady rhythm. I am Ava Moreno. I am her blood. I belong. And in that moment, the weight of every insult, every doubt, every tear, it began to lift. Asterisk, asterisk, I sank into the judge's chair, the leather cool against my back as the courtroom emptied around us. My legs trembled. I pressed my hand to the carved wood armrest, feeling its smooth grain beneath my palm. Then I looked up at the bench empty now of robes, gavel resting silent, and realized it was truly over. I rose, heart still hammering, and stepped toward the center aisle. The hush of polished marble echoed with every footstep. Do I dare believe it? My throat tightened. I breathed in the scent of old wood and paper notes from years of trials and testimonies, and I felt the world shift beneath me, as if the very foundation of doubt had given way. Then I spotted Victor Halstead packing his briefcase. His shoulders were hunched, suit jacket slightly rumpled. Even he looks defeated. I watched as he closed the clasp with a soft click, his eyes flicking toward me without a trace of triumph. I swallowed the last of my fear. I stepped down to the front row, where my mother sat, reaching for my hand. Her fingers were cold. I clasped them, feeling her nails dig into my palm. "It's done," I whispered. She nodded, tears glistening. Her sacrifice, too. I looked to Aunt Rosa beside her, who offered a trembling smile through damp lashes. Forgiveness. Her hand hovered over the forged decree, now neatly folded in the court clerk's folder. I turned, scanning the courtroom for the final witness. My son. Caleb stood near the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, his sneakers squeaking softly as he shifted his weight. I crouched down to his level, and his face lit up. "Mom," he said, voice small but steady, "you did it." I reached out and brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. His belief saved me. "We did it," I corrected, "together." His shoulders relaxed. He stepped into the aisle, and I lifted him into my arms, his weight familiar and grounding. I felt the tension drain from my body as he pressed his cheek to mine. The stillness of the courtroom held us, and I closed my eyes, breathing him in. Then footsteps approached. I looked up to see my lawyer, Sarah Bennett, moving toward us. Her heels sounded like a metronome on the marble. She paused at our side and offered a rare, genuine smile. "Case closed," she said quietly, glancing toward the bench. "No appeals. Victor's claims are dismissed." I felt a warmth spread through my chest. Justice. For a moment, I let myself believe in it again. Sarah stood back as my family gathered around. My mother hugged me, pressing so close I could feel the rise and fall of her chest. Aunt Rosa enveloped Caleb, tears slipping down her cheeks. Javier slipped his arm around both of us, completing the circle. I looked up at the empty bench one last time. I owned it. The air was heavy with relief. My palms felt slick, my heart light. I inhaled deeply, letting the silence wash over me like a benediction. And then, the bailiff cleared his throat, breaking the spell. "Court is adjourned." The words rang out, final and definitive. I straightened, smoothing the front of my scrubs with a trembling hand, my uniform of compassion. I turned and led my family toward the door, each step a reclamation of my life. In the hallway, sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long patterns of gold and shadow across the terrazzo floor. The contrast felt symbolic, light and dark, truth and lies, past and future. I paused beneath the beams, tilting my face upward. "I'm free." Caleb tugged at my scrubs. "Mom, can we go home now?" I laughed, a sound so unsteady it nearly cracked. "Yes, sweetheart, let's go home." Outside, the air was warm with summer's heat. Cars rolled past. People hurried. On sidewalks, the city oblivious to the storm I'd weathered. I clenched my son's hand and stepped into the brightness. The noise of traffic and distant sirens blended into a triumphant chorus. I glanced back at the courthouse one more time. Its stone facade loomed, indifferent but just. I left more than I arrived. I carried with me not a case file, but a piece of reclaimed identity. Caleb huffed. "You okay, Mom?" I laughed again and nodded. "Better than okay." He smiled up at me, and in his eyes I saw a future untainted by doubt. I took his hand and walked on, leaving behind the echoes of doubt and stepping into a tomorrow of my own making. And in that moment, with the sun on my face and my family at my side, I finally believed. I am who I say I am. Nothing can ever change that. Asterisk. I pressed my palm against my chest, and felt my heartbeat settle into a calm rhythm. I survived my own trial. I learned that truth doesn't need permission to exist, it simply needs a voice brave enough to speak it. Then, I realized how often we silence ourselves, fearful of what others might say or do. I felt the weight of every whispered doubt lift, replaced by a fierce certainty. My story, my name, my blood all belong to me, and no one can take them away. I thought of every time I hesitated when I delayed the DNA test, when I doubted my cousin's loyalty, when I let Victor's gaslighting shadow my confidence. Those were the moments I lost myself. And then, I remembered my son's eyes, wide with trust, and I knew I couldn't let fear define us. I vowed to teach him that courage isn't the absence of doubt, but the choice to stand in spite of it. Now, I stand before you completed by scars but unbroken, and I urge you, don't let anyone write your story for you. Speak your truth, even if your voice trembles. Seek proof when you're unsure. Hold tight to the people who believe you. Then watch how the world shifts to make space for your reality. If my journey taught me anything, it's that authenticity is our greatest weapon. So here's my challenge to you. Share your own moment of reclaiming truth in the comments below. If you've ever faced someone who tried to define you, let us know how you rose above. Then hit like if you believe in the power of your own voice, subscribe for more Courtroom Confessions, and ring the bell to stand with me next week when I reveal the untold stories behind closed doors. I am Ava Moreno. This is my truth, and it will not be silenced. Like, comment your story, and subscribe for more ***.